Welcome to Mark My Words, a show that searches for the fork in the road in life, the place where the turning point in the journey of entrepreneurship and life can be found. Let's meet each other at the crossroads on Mark My Words. So it's a bit unusual for me to swear on Mark My Words. I will if the situation warrants it, but and in this case today, I think the situation warrants it. In preparing for this episode with Colby Wegter, which I even went to his LinkedIn page. We had a whole conversation on pronouncing his name, which I really wanted to get right. So right before I let him into this chat, I listened to his LinkedIn soundbite to get it right. So Colby Wegter is here. He has a really great YouTube channel. He's a great speaker. I found out just by watching some of his videos why he pursued teaching as a major or education, because he's an educator and you'll learn something from him. But getting to my original point here is that one of his videos, which I loved, and I'm going to swear because I don't usually swear much on this show, maybe when I stop to record, but one of his videos, he encourages you to unfuck your life in 2025. Some clear signs it's about your own worst enemy. Yeah, because I had the lit reference of my own worst enemy, which I kind of forgot how I was going to be funny about that. But let me just kind of get to the point here, in that we're going to talk a lot about his path, like most of my guests. We're going to talk about mental health, and I just hearing his story and knowing his story already, I think everybody's going to be inspired and love hearing from Colby today. And just to tie this up, Colby is the founder of Autonomy Agency. He hails currently from Milwaukee, otherwise known as Milwaukee. If you Wayne's World reference for you there, if you've seen Wayne's World, the good land. I don't even know if that's true, but Wisconsin is a beautiful state. I love Wisconsin. And Colby Wegter, welcome to Mark My Words with this quirky intro. How you doing today?
Well, it's my favorite, Mark. I could listen to you the whole time. I don't know why I'm here. I'm just here to listen. No, thank you so much for having me. Honored to see where the chat unfolds. And yeah, it's not too bad here. I'm not from Milwaukee originally, but I've been here for a handful of years now, and it's treated me well.
Yeah, I went up there in like August a few years back for a Brewers game, and it was very hot. So it wasn't really like, I don't think it was like the best time, but the one thing that I noticed about Wisconsin is that it's absolutely gorgeous up there. They take care of their landscaping like fine china. I mean, it's just really, really beautiful up there. So you're very lucky to be there, and I'm very lucky to have you on Mark My Words. And I'm going to try to give you the mic a little bit more. I feel like I've been rambling an awful lot. As you know, I had to run home from a far distance to make this happen on time. So let me put all of that stuff aside, and let's start a little bit with your path. Like, we know that you strive to mentor, and you're a leader in that way with your business. And you've had some ups and downs as far as burnout and all that. But let's just start with the one point that I made in the intro about education. And you went to University of Iowa, which is now the University of Caitlin Clark, I guess. But I mean, fantastic. you majored in elementary education and teaching. And did you always know that you wanted to be a teacher? Was that something you were always striving for? What was your goal, dream, as you came, as you progressed in life?
Man, yeah. The way you worded that question, I wouldn't say I really had like goals or dreams then, right? So I came from the middle of nowhere. So the story is pretty straightforward, is that I grew up on a gravel road. And when it came to like vocations that I saw a ton of blue collar people like working at the local gas station, or, I didn't want to be that. I knew that. So it was more like what I didn't want to be. And then I saw like farmers, nurses, or teachers, right? And I didn't want to be a farmer or a nurse. So I was like, teaching it is, right? So I decided that at a very young age, but I wouldn't attribute that to any dreams whatsoever, Mark. It was my worldview was so freaking small. Like, I grew up in the country, but the nearest town was 600 people, right? Like, we didn't have a stoplight, we didn't have a restaurant, like none of that stuff. So, um, yeah, it was one of those things where once I became, once I declared and went to school, and Iowa was the number one party school for the 4 years I was there, by the way. So there was plenty of other things to do than think about teaching, for better or worse. But
Congratulations.
yeah, right. I actually I don't take it as a compliment so much as like Spider-Man. It was a responsibility. I ended up contributing to it a little bit. I'm too old to wear that as a badge of honor now. But anyways, yeah, I mean, by the time I realized like maybe teaching isn't for me, I was already probably 3 years into my college career, and I had been paying for it the whole time out of my own pocket. So I was like, you came here to get the piece of paper. Um, and so I pushed through. And then when I got my first teaching job, which was kind of my first official burnout just as an adult, uh, I took my first teaching job in Brooklyn, and did not last very long. So it was never a passion. And teaching is what I have so much respect for existing teachers, is like, you need to be passionate about that to stay in that a long time. And I wasn't, and I'm very comfortable to admit that.
So, first of all, if you're listening to this episode, I was definitely kidding about congratulations. This is coming from somebody who never partied anywhere ever when they were growing up, whether it was high school or college. But one of the reasons that I wanted to do this show, this just mark my words, this podcast, is because I wanted to do 50 billion things. I'm sure at one point I even probably wanted to be a teacher. I'm actually pretty sure I did. I wanted to do everything. And I can really relate to your, I guess, obstacle as far as where you wanted to find yourself, but you didn't. Once you tried certain things or saw other people you might have known doing certain things, like I wanted to work in woodworking at one point, and I wanted to do so many things. And this show at least allows me to live through a whole lot of people like you because I'm never going to do what you do. I don't think that I could, which is why you're here. But it's amazing to me just how far when you look back and you are where you are now and you're like, wow, I've really grown and really come a long way. And
Mhm.
do you ever just kind of look back? Like I know guys like us like look forward, but do you ever look back and say, wow, I really grew?
Oh, 100% actually. And most recently, that's been a huge thing I've really kind of invested personal mental space to, is because yeah, for years and years I was always looking forward. I was always looking for the thing that would like make everything better. And a lot of people I help now are still in that space. And there is so much there's so much joy in looking backwards, right? It allows, I don't think I'll ever be a content person. I don't think I'll ever look at it and be like, I'm nothing should change here. I'm not that type. But I am certainly not the person who looks backward and be like, man, I regret any of that. Like, I don't regret the burnouts. I don't regret being a teacher. I don't regret being poor, like all that sort of stuff, because all of those are basically positive votes for what you are able to withstand. And so they don't a lot of people, and I wouldn't blame them necessarily. There comes a point where it's like you got to decide what you want to be, and if you want to be a victim, then keep doing what you're doing. But I look at all those moments instead of say, oh, I behave this way because of a trauma, or I behave this way because I didn't have what I wanted, or blah blah blah. I'm really grateful for what I do have now, and so and I'm nowhere near done where I want to get. But that's not from greed. It's kind of one of those things is just from 2024, which was the best year of my life, but it was because I had all those tougher years and then I made a ton of different decisions, and those not they didn't all work, but I'm so incredibly proud of my individual self for making things change, right? Otherwise, it would have just been more of the same. And everybody has that in their power. So I don't want to get too existential, but it's just like I kind of look at it as a light switch is right. Like you're going to endure life anyway, so you can either flip the switch on or you can keep it off. That's up to you, right? I'm not saying have the answer. I'm saying decide to flip the switch. And maybe, maybe it can't be done alone. Now I coach people. That was a huge shift in my life. I was just constantly like ego filled. I have to do it and it's going to be the best and that kind of stuff. And it's like then when you get help, you're like, oh, okay, I'm actually going faster and it's more fun because I'm not going alone. And so that's just one example. But yeah, looking back to answer your question is I find it's incredibly valuable because anytime I'm feeling like, man, I suck today, which is very rare. I'm a pretty positive person these days. It's very easy for me to be like, well, you're not working a 16-hour day as a teacher. You didn't have to be a teacher during the pandemic. Like, pretty good life. You know what I mean? So, yeah, I looking back to me is a very vital tool.
And I appreciate your viewpoint there because I have the same conversation with myself. I'll look back, or maybe if I am having a bad day and I kind of thumb through the Rolodex of life a little bit and I think of where I might have been or where I actually was, and I see where I am now. I'm like, this is pretty awesome life. I really can't complain. That kind of thinking can really help to bring you back to reality in a good way. So I
Yeah.
appreciate that. And
Yeah, can I give you a frame that's helped me? Sorry to cut you off, just because it makes sense. When it I have a very interesting, well, I think it's interesting. I don't know. Maybe that sounds ego. I have a belief in what is considered success, right? Because I think it's one of those things where everybody is trying to like, okay, I don't feel as successful as I want to be. And so then they start looking outward. They're like, I don't have the friends I want, or I don't have the money I want, or I don't, live where I want, or whatever. And I find all that is success should never be on its foundational basis judged outwardly. And so my frame is success is determined this way. Do I have higher level problems this year than I did this time last year? And that's it. And that's that sort of frame. I'm sure I took inspiration from somewhere like on actually deciding on those exact words, but that's been my personal frame that I kind of invented for myself, which is just like I am successful. Absolutely. Because the problems I'm solving today are way more high level than the problems I was solving when I was like peak burnout, as an example. Right. And so if you're that person who's just like, I feel like I'm not successful, just ask yourself the question, what were you doing last year? And if you are doing the same thing you were doing last year, then yeah, you're not successful. But guess who gets to change that? You know what I mean? So um, I just find that frame it's universal instead of like, cherry picked of money or fame or whatever.
I'm glad you cut me off there because that is really great advice. That is one of the many, many infinity amount of reasons that I do this. I
Mm.
hope that somebody listening to this episode who is trying to start out as an entrepreneur or is stuck in their own rut, their own fork in the road, I hope they hear those words and feel inspired because you are where you are now. You're beyond that and you stay mentally strong. it takes a lot to kind of like stay mentally tough when you're trying to run a business. Because I've had my share of failures and things that made me feel like quitting and made me feel like I wasn't good enough. But you almost have to dig deep and kind of understand that everybody goes through it. Everybody has challenges, and you have to find a way to remember what your why is and what your purpose, what your goal is, and just keep on going. And I had my fair share of battles with that. So I really appreciate that advice that you just gave. And a lot of what you're talking about is consistent with one of the videos I watched where you talked about driving in the snow anyway, and you had a couple of other really good examples in that video of just having that frame of mind, that mentality. And I know that you had your battles with burnout, and I would like to ask before, or I'm kind of going a little bit out of order of where I think mentally I'd like to go, but while we're on the topic, let's talk a little bit about what led you to burnout and what led, like, how did you I think you even said at one point that it's not about curing it necessarily. It's about managing it. And I'm like paraphrasing that, but I'm going to let you talk about that a little bit.
Well, yeah, that's paraphrased. That's pretty much verbatim. Yeah. So it's, I think there is an element of, if you think you're burning out, you likely already have, or you very much are burning out. And so it's writing on the wall stuff. And so to answer your question, like why did I burn out? Was I was doing everything alone. So just background on people who don't know who I am, right? Like I just kind of bounced around in my career, and then I found in marketing after teaching, and I've been in marketing ever since. But it was kind of like agency hopping, or like, am I a project manager? Am I a leader? Blah blah blah. It doesn't matter. That's all semantics, right? But started my own agency with a couple of other guys, and so when I burnt out twice in the same year, it was 2022. That was a year basically going into seven of our agency, right? And so why did I burn out is because we had a very small team. It was literally us three partners and then one employee, and we got to $1 million that way. And because there was so few of us, and because I was the youngest partner by like almost 20 years, um, it was an element of me trying to be like, okay, these guys have decades of business experience on me, and I want to be on equal footing with them. And I am an ambitious person, and I would consider myself someone who is like going to solve the problem and figure it out and take it on. And there's nothing wrong with that inherently, but there is a huge thing wrong with that if you're trying to use it for ill purposes. Not like ill purposes as in like unethical, as in like, who was I serving really? I was serving perception. I was serving people caring. I was serving like recognition and all that sort of stuff. So I said yes to everything. Like, I wrote 150,000 words of copy for our website in like 3 months. Was managing 45 clients on my own. When we started hiring staff at the end of that year, I did all of the interviewing, contracts, management. We wrote a handbook that year. Like, I was doing freaking everything for to burn out. Like, that was my reward, right? Um, and so you're not asking for the solution, because I don't believe there is a total, fix everything. That's why I say you manage it better, because I manage it better, right? I'm just as perceptible to burnout now as I would have been then. I just can see the signs a lot easier. And then I have measures in place to prevent it. And one of those measures is you say no more than you say yes. Um, Warren Buffett, I think, said like successful people say no 90% of the time. And so if you take that on and you can get over the fear of missing out, and this opportunity that falls in your lap, like you just have to have self-belief that if you say no to that, another opportunity's coming. Because again, fear of missing out was the first word in it, fear. So if something shows up and you're afraid that it's going to go away, you are operating from a moment of scarcity and fear. And you will burn out again if you don't cure that. And so for me, it was a lot of like self dialogue of just, I'm going to say no, and I'm not, I'm not going to give an F about it. Right. Um, because I'm not a people pleaser. I want to be very clear about that. A lot of the people I work with are. Two things. Nobody cares about you. So why are you trying to please them all? Okay. That's a liberating thing. That's not a sad thing that nobody cares about you. When you realize nobody cares about you, you can do what you want. Yeah. And then the second thing is I would much rather have people's respect because I have clear values and boundaries than people's attention that they don't treat nearly as high value as I treat my own time. Okay. And so if you don't create boundaries, people don't see them. And so then they take advantage and all that sort of stuff. Right. Um, yeah, I'm kind of waffling too, but what I would say is like you need to, for me, you need, for burnout, you need to like get over the fact that you want to do everything, can do everything, all that sort of stuff. You can't. And know who your master is. My master, like my values are rock solid. What I want to do is help the most possible people on earth. Okay. Guess the way I do that? By saying no to the most people possible. Because if I say yes to everyone, they're all going to get like 5% version of me. If I say no to the people who don't align with my values and only work on the people who do align with my values, those people are going to get 100% of me. They're going to have a lot more depth. They're going to go a mile deep, not a mile wide and an inch deep, and they're going to actually get somewhere. And that's my mission, is to help so many people hit their potential. And guess who's at the top of that list? Not selfishly, me. I want to hit my potential by saying no. And if I burn out, I'm going to help less people. It's just, I just can't do it. So, um, the way you worded the question, Mark, just got me in like a totally different frame from how I usually answer it. But the short answer is like if you say yes to everything, you're a master of nothing.
Well, I'll tell you what, you are a master of this topic because I mean that may not be 100% true, but you're pretty darn good because I love the way that you put all of that. I mean, as you're speaking, I keep thinking about all the inquiries that, like, I'm getting flooded and maybe a little egotistic to say this in an episode, but I really have been getting flooded recently with inquiries to be on this show, and they're all like really great people, but it's like you only have so many hours in the day. And I know time management is something that you talk about a little bit and you're passionate about as well. And time management is everything. Like you just don't always have time for everything for me to have every single person who's ever messaged me to be on this show. At this point, at least with my schedule, it's very difficult. So I almost have to kind of narrow it down a little bit and saying no. Like I think you learn as you get older to say no because when you're
Hopefully.
younger, you sound like you have a thought for that because as you get older, you just figure out that like I have it's self preservation. Um, you look like you want to say something, so I'm gonna let you say it.
Well, I was just gonna say like that's not a given that you figure that out, right? Like just to be fully transparent, I'm the youngest kid in my family. I'm the fourth kid out of four. Every single one of my siblings have come to me with that sort of problem, being like, "How do you do it?" It's like I would love to say to you that there's a system. It's just I just ask the question of myself, right? Like, and if we're doing a business focused, another frame I have is this something I'm willing to do for 10 years? Because if it's not, then I'm not going to freaking do it. And I did not discover that overnight. It was 10 years of me saying yes to a bunch of stuff I wouldn't even want to do 6 months later, let alone 10 years later. But I said yes because I was like, oh, the money's good, or oh, just for now, or blah blah blah. It's like the people who you and I both agree, the older you get, the more you'll learn to say no, usually. But what I will say is that many people do not understand what's truly on the table. It is the devaluing of their personal time, and then they apply emotion to it. So if they actually think that their time is worth more than saying yes, then they have the fear of, well, if I say no, I'll hurt this other person's feelings.
So
Is
how
there
do you,
another, like, yeah, go.
no, I was just gonna ask, kind of coming off of this, one of your goals is to help scale marketing agency to 7 figures and 30-hour work weeks. How do you help people to at least strive for something like that, like the 30-hour work week?
Yeah, and I'm working with a very specific type of person, right? There's someone who's already hit 6 figures and they're working over 40 hours a week, right? So
Yeah, fair enough.
um, I'm very selective with who I work with. I basically call them, Mark, I call them A players operating at 20%. And so another fun title for them is the Chief Everything Officer. They were me. They are who I was. So how do we support that promise? It's the mechanism I used. I didn't realize I was using it at the time. I was recovering from burnout. So these were just choices I made that ended up working really well. And then, I didn't have grand plans of having this business either, but some people saw my transformation and was like, okay, what did you do? So then I started teaching them some of the things, and then they saw transformation, and then I also combined that with 100 plus coffee chats with people. That's how I kind of network and do business. Is like, hey, no pretense. If I think we're a good fit, I'll tell you about what I'm up to. But if I don't vibe 100% with you, you'll have no idea what I'm doing, because it's no worries to you. But I'm not going to waste your time, right? Like that, because I'm not going to waste mine. And so like coffee chat stuff. But anyways, talked to the 100 plus of those people in the last 18 months prior to starting my new business, and it was like, oh, this is unignorable. Like, I would love to say that my burnout story is really riveting and exciting. It's common as hell. Unfortunately, I'm not unique at all. And so how I help these people is basically applying the mechanism, and this is what I title it, is I call it the autonomy agency model. I named my business very intentionally, because autonomy, by definition, is the ability to say yes or no without fear. And that's the transformation I'm after. So 7 figures, great number. 30-hour work week, great number. Both incredibly achievable. I went from 70 hours down to 8 hours a week, and we doubled in revenue in the time we did that, right? We went from 1 million to actually 2.5 in 12 months. Took us 7 years to get to a million. Took us 12 months after I started doing things to get us to 2.5. Okay. Which was basically saying no to a bunch of stuff. Amazing, right? How we do it, real simple. First step is self scale, then it's team scale, then it's client scale. We start with self scale because everything trickles down from that person. If they want perfect fit clients and they don't like the clients they have, you got to fix yourself. If you want to hire people who follow your example and become A players themselves, you got to become an A player. So that's why I'm kind of fighting against the current of what you see mostly online right now, where it's like, here's 20 leads in a week, and we'll double your revenue by X, Y, and Z. I think it's, run your business however you want. Those aren't my people, because that to me solves nothing. More money on a broken model solves nothing.
I
And
love your
so
approach as I cut you off. Go ahead.
please.
Continue.
No,
I'm sorry.
all I was going to say is I'm just pretty intense about it for a reason. Like, I am not trying to solve your revenue cash flow problems. I'm trying to solve you. Do you actually want to have a business problem? And when you have the business, is the business fun? And then when you have those two things, can you make money consistently? because most of their problems are not can they make money. They're A players. They can make money. It's just feast and famine. It's unpredictable or it's only word of mouth or whatever. So yeah, there's systems for that all day long. I'm not going to give you a funnel system if you can't say no to somebody you know is a poor fit for you. Let's work on that first, right? And so our mechanism, it goes self, team, and client. But really, if I were to give like just the overarching view of what the mechanism is, we solve one problem at a time. And it's one on one. And like we do not go to the next one until it's done. And we solve the most priority problem, not the nice to have problem. Right. So, like, my business is a month old, Mark. We're working on offers right now. Everything trickles down from do you believe in what you're selling? Because if you don't, then nothing else is going to work. And so we're working on like, how do we get bulletproof belief for them to go sell what they want to sell? And then when they have belief, guess what? Other people are going to believe too. And then they're going to have a different problem, but they're going to be successful because it's a higher level problem. Right.
So you said one word, fun. Fun is contagious, and I think no matter what you're doing in life, I mean, yeah, running a business is business and it's hard work, but I also feel like it needs to be fun. And I had one guest on in particular a few episodes back who is just having, from my perspective, the time of their life. And it made me really, I guess it reinforced the fact that if you're going to run a business, no matter what you're doing, there has to be some element of fun. And what they're doing is pretty darn fun, but you have to have fun. I just saw so much joy in that guest, in that episode. And for me, it really reinforced that. And I've thought about that a lot. And I'm glad that you said fun and mixed in with all of this. And I know that mentorship is a big deal for you. Talk a little bit about mentorship and just your approach, your goals with mentoring and the impact that not only you want to have on others, but maybe the impact that you might want somebody to have on you. Because I, when just listening to, again, your channel earlier, I'm just like, all my life, I feel like I don't know if I can name anybody who is like really a mentor. There's a lot of people who inspire me and that have, definitely inspired me to be better, but I've always been kind of like that, you know, lone wolf kind of person, that one man band kind of person. I'm very comfortable with that. But I really, hearing about mentorship so much, I wanted to throw that in here today and just hear your perspective on it. And
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, it no joke. I think it's a life changer. Now there's a lot of people advertising mentorship and then they suck at it, and that's fine. Like where what I would say is like you have to be selective, right? And so let's diagnose you real quick, Mark. If you're saying, "Hey, I've never done that," like the first question would be, "Do you want one?"
that is a really good question because I feel like I've asked myself that question. So a few years back, there was somebody, a fellow podcaster, they're really, really good. And I was just getting started up and I wanted to get with them. I guess they had like a service on the side, kind of like mentoring people like me who were just getting started. And was talking to them in like their comments and stuff a lot and really felt a connection. I actually had a couple of appointments on a calendar every time they didn't show up. And I'm just like, what the heck is this? So finally, I was like, hey, I don't know what's going on here, but I think I'm just stepping aside from this. I don't think I'm going to go any further. Not that we got anywhere, but
Yeah.
it was like, and they gave me kind of like a weird answer. So I have a suspicion that that could have been like a social media person posing. I don't know. That's a lot of conspiracy theory for mark my words here. But that was like one of those times where I really was like, yeah, I really like this person could be like a mentor for me. And it kind of almost set me back to that's not for me, like
Mhm.
I'm the one man band. I'm just gonna figure it out. I feel like that's been a lot of my life. I'm just gonna figure it out. And so I think there's a lot of baggage with it. The long answer to it
Yeah,
is
good answer.
I think maybe there is, but there's just a lot of baggage, and I'm so resourceful anyway that I'm just like, and I guess my approach to life is just, if life opens the door, if the universe opens the door for that kind of relationship, it'll just happen, and I'm not gonna like go looking for it, like don't go looking for love. Let love find you. I mean,
Well,
that's
can I
basically how
challenge that a little bit?
that's
Is that all
basically
right if
how
I
I can
challenge it?
answer.
Yeah, yeah. But I think this is a fun exercise, right? So and keep in mind, I say to everyone I have ever like have long-term interactions with, it's like I can't say one thing and mean another, right? So I'm not like subliminally trying to mess with you here. There is no subtext, okay? So what I'm
No,
asking you is what I genuinely want to know. So
we
I have a
we
question for
like
you.
we like to be subliminally messed with. On mark my words. Go ahead.
Well, then I'm not your person, right? I'm too direct for that. Um, but I have a genuine question, right? Do you have a goal? Doesn't matter what it is, financial status, whatever. Is there a goal in your head that you have not yet reached? You don't even have to say
Yeah,
what it is.
I would say yeah, sure.
Okay. So you have this concrete thing and you've tried mentorship in the past and guess what, it didn't work. And here's the deal. You found a shitty mentor. That's it. Right. So you I don't know you that well, right? This is our first meeting, but like if you say you're resourceful, I'm inclined to believe you. If you say you figure stuff out, I'm inclined to believe you. And so here's what's really on the table with should Marc have a mentor or not. There's a universal truth. We don't know what we don't know. And all you know is that you tried something once and it didn't work. That's it. You also know that you don't have a goal or you haven't achieved a goal that you want to hit yet. And so the name of the game, like my whole mission in life, especially for my clients and just myself personally, so I don't burn out again, is like, how can I get to the simplest viable product, right? And so the product of this is once isn't enough to find the right person. That's it. Just to close, like you have a gap you want to close, you have a goal, you haven't hit it yet. So there's you where you are right now, and there's the goal, that's where you want to be, and the gap between those is figuring out how to do it. And most of the time, because all a mentor is, there are no shortcuts in life, okay? But the right mentor is the closest damn thing, okay? And so when you find that person, and you should take a little bit of time, sometimes, like you said, don't go looking for love, let love find you. I appreciate those words. That is not a strategy that I want to bank my career on because then the universe controls what I'm after instead of me controlling what I'm after. And that's it. So you don't have like I think the real thing to acknowledge here is just like it's a simple formula. And so then it really just comes down to your personal will and desire to go find that person. And if you desire it enough, maybe it's even, say, watching that video I did, which was just really basic, straightforward of like, how did I find mine? Okay. It's a 3-step process. I went on LinkedIn, I messaged that person. I saw if they offered what I was kind of interested in. It checked all the boxes. That was enough for me to say yes. He could have been crap too. And if he was, thankfully he wasn't. But if he was, then I would have had to go with someone else if I desired it enough. If you haven't done it, that's not you're not a bad person. There's nothing you don't need a mentor, but you don't desire it enough to do it. That's it. That's fine. Who cares? right? It only matters when you start caring, and then you'll start solving the problem. So I love like when people go online and make these universal statements. For instance, I did the other day, and this was before I schedule my content. So if you're listening to, I don't know when you're going to listen to this recording, but it's not too many days after Elon Musk gave a perceived Nazi salute. Okay, I wrote content with Elon Musk's name in it and scheduled it before that happened, and then it was posted after that happened because I'm managing a lot of things, right? And anyways, it wasn't like anything controversial. It was literally just like, if you want something and you don't have it, then the only thing you should be trying to solve is how to go get it, instead of spending your time being like Jeff, Elon, Mark Zuckerberg. They had all these advantages that I don't have. You're spending energy on things you don't control. They didn't have any more advantages than you did, right? I'm a white American male. Should a Latinx woman who, is here but like of her own volition, should she feel she has any less chance to do what she wants to do than I do? No. Like you can find enemies everywhere. They don't do you any good. Which is always why I find like so many people, there are so many people, I'm sure you've seen this. It's like every other movie you and I watch. The father tormented the son, and now the son's gone and done something because to spite the father or to be different than his father or blah blah blah. It's like, I appreciate it, but who hurt you, man? Your dad was your dad. You were you. Do what you want, right? And so like these are the conventions I try and change, because I'm not saying don't feel what you feel, but it goes back to the earlier part in the conversation. Who's your master? If the master is the trauma, you can flip that switch up and down all day. And if you can't do it by yourself, there are people who can help you. And if you're not getting help, it's because you don't want it. It's not because you don't deserve it. It's not because it can't help you. It's because you are so mixed up in this doesn't work that you're not actually going to try and find a way to make it work.
So
So
this
it's pretty direct, right? But like, ask me where the like, if someone challenges me, I will be able to tie that directly to emotion, ego, or perception every time. No one cares about me, therefore I can do whatever I want, right? And I'm just a very ethical person, so I do a lot of ethical things that bring value to people. If you're a not ethical person and you do whatever you want, okay, yeah, that has consequences, right? But like, if you believe you're a good person, why would you let anyone stand in the way of that, regardless of what happened to you? You got lungs or you got air in your lungs and you got your feet on the ground. What's the problem? Right?
I
So
love it.
obviously I'm a little more empathetic one-on-one with somebody, but like, that's really what's at stake here. You know what I mean?
Well, this is why I love these moments where I make myself an example. I knew when you said I haven't exercised, I'm like, yes. No, I love everything that you said. I'm totally with you. And it's hard when you are that person sometimes to see maybe something that somebody else might see. I almost said where I'm going wrong, but to your point, it may not necessarily be wrong. But yeah,
No, it's not. It's an
yeah,
experience. You didn't do
it
anything
is.
wrong, Mark. You
Yeah,
had an experience. And look
right.
backwards. Instead of saying, "Oh, this doesn't work," say, "Thank you. Now I know." Right? That's different. Like, if you've been hurt by, you had a bad relationship, thank you. Now I know. Right? Oh, okay, you tried to launch a product and it went crickets. Thank you. Now I know. Don't do it again. That's all nobody has it figured out. I'm not over here being like, I know everything. I don't know anything about that. Like, it's just, I just refuse to let it bother me. And then, okay, now I know that should inform what I do next.
Well, I don't know much. That's why I like being an example. So I really appreciated your viewpoint on all that. I hope that, I mean, that definitely gives me something to think about. I hope it helps somebody else who might be listening. That's wonderful advice. And I feel to your point before we hit record, I definitely think we could probably talk for another hour, but I know that you have somewhere that you need to be, so I don't want to hold you up for that. But at least for the moment, I'm going to give you a chance to tell everybody how they can find you, how they can work with you, and maybe how they can find your awesome content on YouTube.
Well, yeah, I just want to personally thank you again for giving it a look, right? I definitely value anyone's attention that they spend with little old me. So just know I'm very grateful for that. So if you do want to find me, I am working on said YouTube channel. I'm the only Colby Wegter on earth as far as I know. So just ColbyWegter. You give that a Google search, you'll find me just fine. If you are an agency owner, that's who I help primarily. Established agency owners at six figures trying to get to seven. Autonomyagency.com is the website there, and you'll find everything you need. So, but yeah, just give me a Google and anywhere, right? I post pretty regularly on a handful of places.
Well, before we go for today, I just want to give you an opportunity. I almost feel like we didn't quite get in enough of your path and kind of more in depth into the ups and downs. First of all, one point I do want to make is that you lasted about 4 months longer as a bank teller than I did because I only lasted. I went through the training, and
Yeah.
once they started showing videos of what a bank robbery could be like, I was like, I can't do this. So the fact that you lasted like 4 or 5 months is incredible. But is there anything that we didn't talk about in this episode about burnout, about entrepreneurship, anything that you really value that you didn't get to talk about that you want to throw in here?
Well, I value a ton of stuff, but yeah, there's. I always like to see if I'm conversing with someone such as yourself, just where it goes, right? I think there's no need to try and inject things without authenticity. But what I will say is just maybe the value would be is just reinforcing of like what where I'm getting at with all you've heard in this episode. If you've gotten to this part, is just like you have total ownership, right? Especially if you're an entrepreneur, no one's forcing you to do it. Like instead of looking at how hard everything is, it's really fun to flip that on its head and be like, I don't have to do this then. I don't have to. I'll figure something else out. And then you start looking at it and being like, man, I'm really lucky that I have this problem. I'm really lucky I get to solve things for myself, right? Because you know somebody right now who wishes they could be you. That doesn't give you any value, but I would just say take your own ownership. Like you are way more in control than you think. And I'm not special. Like I do not have anything interesting about me that makes me think that way. It's available to all, right? So I hope that got across because it's just so many people feel powerless, especially if you're experiencing burnout. You are not powerless. You might not be able to do it alone, and I would encourage you not to. Um, but you're certainly not powerless.
You just rattled off a few reasons as to why I love having my own business and my own show and just the control, the autonomy, the ability to own it and the ability to have control over my destiny and just yeah, I love that and just the passion for what I'm doing. I mean, you gotta have that, otherwise, why bother? And I mean, I want to thank you again. This was Colby Wegter, founder of Autonomy Agency. Want to thank you again for all the great words of wisdom and for being here on Mark My Words. I really appreciate your time and I look forward to continuing to follow what you're doing because you're doing awesome stuff. So I appreciate you being here. Thanks.
Yeah, ton of fun, Mark. Thanks for having me on. Totally honored, and yeah, best of luck with the success of the show.
Appreciate that. And as two people who value time and time management, I am going to bid everybody farewell, and I'll see you soon. That's all for now. Bye. Thank you for taking time out of your busy day to go on a journey with me into entrepreneurship and life on Mark My Words. If you would like to learn more about me and the show, you can find me on LinkedIn at Mark Schmidt or connect with me on Instagram at Nimrod79. Video episodes of Mark My Words, as well as other content, can also be found on the Mark My Words YouTube page. Entrepreneurship can be quite the roller coaster ride. It can be a bit isolating and intimidating, but it doesn't have to be that way. Let's meet here next time at the crossroads on another episode of Mark My Words.